The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
I need you to knock some sense into me. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I enjoy listening to you. I don't always agree with everything.
All right, enough of this persiflage.
So, you want my question?
I'm certainly not going to get myself in trouble by telling you what to do.
That makes great sense. Gosh, that's good.
Did I overwhelm you with words and wisdom?
I've got 7 kids. I feel like I could call you every day.
What? Wait, you're telling me I'm wrong? Disconnect.
Yes, I am, Dr. Ray.
You just need to tune in to Dr. Ray, honey. He's got all the answers.
Am I right or am I right?
Probably.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
Very nice to be with you. Major privilege. I've disconnected the program here from all telemarketers. You notice that? You get those on that end there, Andrew? About 50% of my calls now comes up on the phone. Spam risk. Okie doke. What did I hear? There were something like 100,000 call centers in India reaching into our phones with all kinds of come-ons. Well, the come-on here is for you to come on the show. And the number to do that is easy. It's not a spam risk. 877-573-7825. 877-57 equal. Program here is The Doctor Is In. I am the doctor who is in, not meaning cool. Not meaning cool, just present. If you'd like to be present, I'd love to have you. Question about something in your life. Kids, jobs, stress, family, rock, paper, scissors, whatever it might be that, you just say, okay, let me hear what this guy thinks. Not going to do any therapy. Can't do that. Can't diagnose. Too far away. But we can put our heads together, see what we can come up with. And if it's a little kid, you may be feeling like that little kid's smarter than you, and he's probably smarter than me, but he's not going to be smarter than both of us. And even if he is smarter than both of us, you control everything. Got a lot of leverage. So the number to get onto the program is 877-57 equal. Some thanks are in order. Again, I want to thank the folks down in San Antonio, Texas. Was there last night. Visited the Legatus group. Wonderful people. Peggy Hawkins, Dan Hawkins. Very, very nice folks. Thank you so very much for all of that. Then, getting a good chance, let's see, I'm leaving tomorrow morning for California. San Juan Capistrano. A lot of San Antonio and San Juan Capistrano. We're going to be heading out there to do a little visit with Lila Rose on her program. But then in the evening, JP2 Radio. Oh, they're celebrating 15 years. El Centro, right over there by San Diego, another San. So I can be San Ramon maybe. But it's be exciting. Looking forward to doing that. All right. What else? Anything else here? Any other items of business? No. Looks like we're all set. So what about my opening monologue? I saw some statistics, and I do not have them at my fingertips. I thought for sure I did. All right, let me try this again. Go there. Go back. First Things. This is an article from First Things. See what it is here. Doesn't give statistics. I thought for sure they did. I did see some of them. The number of young people identifying as transgender, non-binary, or anything but straight has dropped off dramatically in the several years since peak woke, around 2021 to 2023. A guy named Jonathan Van Maren writes, He believes that this accords with the observation that transgenderism is a social contagion, heavily socially peer influenced. He concludes, he says this: trans identification will continue to collapse. The only question is how far. Now, I saw the stats. They're down under. The non-binary was really high in some surveys that I saw, especially among the people under 25. But they plummeted. They've just absolutely plummeted. And one could bring up the point that if this wasn't so heavily socially influenced, you wouldn't have this kind of boom and bust cycle that they have. So that's a sign that we're getting a little bit more balanced in looking at this. He says here, a guy named Richard Corradi, Corradi. Now, as I talk, I just got a spam risk on my phone. Get out of there. He said the trans phenomenon, he predicted this back in October 2015, would follow the pattern of other social manias. And I don't know what this is. He called it the Dutch tulip bubble of the 1630s and the satanic panic of the 1980s. I remember that satanic panic thing. Remember when some of these preschools, the kids were just reporting all kinds of what turned out to be fallacious stuff regarding abuse and all of that. And this panic was widespread that all of these things were happening. So he says that he predicted that this would see a decline in the transgender stuff. When I was in grad school, we were taught essentially to deal with the person. Somebody comes into your office or wherever you might see them. It is an individual approach to life. It's what their struggles are, what their emotional upheaval is, whatever it might be, you focus on the individual. And I've come to realize in the last 20 years or so that so much of what I deal with is now culturally influenced. In those days, it was these are things endemic to the individual. This is their own psychic struggles. But it seems so much now, and I think that's a factor with the internet and mass media and social media and all of that, which influences people, makes them think certain ways. It makes them glom onto certain kinds of movements, and some of these movements create a lot of problems for them. I get a lot of this in my office now, an awful lot of people who are culturally struggling. A small example, I still have people that are afraid to go out of their house, not because they're suffering from what was called agoraphobia, which is a broad-based anxiety problem, because of COVID. Yes, because of COVID. And I predicted years ago at the onset of the whole COVID experience that in the end there would be a certain small percentage, I hope, of germaphobes, people who, as though they became aware that there are invisible viruses out there, microbes of various types, to, in fact, ooh, that's a good question. Okay. That's a good one, Tully. Get to you in a second. That, in fact, are now surrounding us. Prior to that, they weren't so aware of it. They may have intellectually had a sense that there's stuff out there that could make me sick, or in worst case scenario, hurt me badly. But because it was so pounded into our consciousness for so long, that many people now are so afraid, hyper aware of we live in a world of microbes. Always have. Lately, an awful lot of the people who come into my office are someone who is dealing with a relative who has gender identity struggles. Usually it's a kid. And when I say kid, I'm talking teenager and young adult. That's now become, well, that was not something that I saw in the first 20 or 30 years of my practice. You just didn't see it. Oh, yes, there was same-sex attraction, but again, even that was a lot less than is now coming into family life. So the cultural factors are big. They're just big. All right, I got to take a break. Give you the number, 877-573-7825. I wish Tully would have stayed there. Those are poignant questions. 877-57-EQUAL is the number to call to get onto the program. I certainly would like to hear from you. Give me a buzz. Thank you.
If you're on Medicare, start saving with the $0 premium Trinity Health Plan of Michigan HMO. This doctor-designed Medicare Advantage plan offers $1,785 cash back per year in your Social Security check on select plans. Visit TrinityHealth65.com. Get more from this local plan that's on a mission to make Medicare better. You'll have easy access to our large network of providers, plus no referrals for in-network doctors and specialists. Enroll in this budget-friendly plan that can make healthcare easier for you. Visit TrinityHealth65.com for details. Trinity Health Plan of Michigan, HMO, is a Medicare Advantage organization with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Trinity Health Plan of Michigan depends on contract renewal. Benefits vary by county. Not all plans have cash back. $1,785.60 per calendar year, which is $148.80 per month. Copays and coinsurance vary by plan. To file a grievance, call 1-800-MEDICARE to file a complaint with Medicare. Other pharmacies, physicians, or providers are available in the plan's network.
Hi, I'm Matthew Handley from PurpleCatholic.com, inviting you to my new program, Death Comes for the Archbishop. Each week, we'll explore Willa Cather's timeless novel of faith and frontier life in 19th century New Mexico. You'll hear vivid narration and thoughtful conversations with historians and theologians who bring its spiritual depth to life. Death Comes for the Archbishop, Saturdays at noon on Ave Maria Radio.
This program brought to you in part by Ave Maria, Florida, a big kind of small town where golf carts take you everywhere and there's always something fun around the corner. Discover championship golf, resort-style amenities, and a town center full of shopping and dining. With Ave Maria University and Ave Maria Catholic Church at its heart, it's a community full of connection and charm. More than 25 model homes are available for viewing. More information can be found at AveMaria.com. That's AveMaria.com.
Improving your mind by the minute. My goal is to improve it by the sentence. Tully didn't want to stay on. Here was her question. If someone truly believes that they were born in the wrong body, is that sinful? And then she asked, is homosexuality really a sin? And then she said, am I being wrong for thinking this is all okay? Well, first of all, let's put it in a context. For those who wish to follow Jesus' teachings through the Bible and his church, it would be that homosexuality, when acted upon, would be going against the teachings of Jesus and God. That's whether you agree with that, whether you don't, that's what it is. Now, if someone truly believes they were born in the wrong body, well, first of all, they probably, most of the time, probably do truly believe it. That's not the question. The question is, were they born in the wrong body? Transgenderism, gender confusion on a genetic basis is rare. It's rare. The people who would say, I'm in the wrong body, If it's a girl and she says, I'm in the wrong body because I'm really a boy in my mind, well, her trillions of cells in her body are XX, which are female. So she may truly think this. The question is her thinking according to reality? That's the question. Somebody comes into my office and says, I'm a fat person. I'm just so fat. I look in the mirror, I'm so fat, and I throw up and I purge myself and I take laxatives because I want to get down to 65 pounds. They may truly believe they're fat. But are they? At 5'2", 70 pounds, is that fat? So that's the question. The church would teach that any sexuality outside of marriage is wrong. So same-sex attraction in and of itself is not wrong. To act upon it, according to the teaching of the church, and all the way back to the apostles, and into the Old Testament, would be wrong, as would be having relations outside of marriage. Or adultery. The physical act is to be, as God said, in marriage. And we have all kinds of research that says the further you get from that, it has all kinds of social and personal ugly ramifications. Now, what Tully seems to be asking is, am I wrong in thinking all of this is okay? No, but I think you are also thinking like the culture wants you to think, as opposed to what has been Christian teaching, or what has been God teaching through the Old Testament. Now, if you say, well, I don't agree with that, you have that right. God's not going to force it on you. On the other hand, then you have to acknowledge, okay, I'm not following that particular aspect of church teaching or God teaching or Christ teaching. Where does that leave me? As long as you can do that, then, well, why don't you not follow the teaching on abortion? Why do you don't follow the teaching on not punching somebody in the face when you get really mad? Not follow the teaching of loving. There's people in your life you just don't love. You hate their guts. Well, you think you can justify that? Then you do. So yeah, it is a serious question mark when somebody says, I am in the wrong body. How do they know that that is the wrong body? If somebody says, I feel like a woman, if a guy says, I feel like a woman, the question has to be asked, what does a woman feel like? How do you know what a woman feels like? How can you even define what a woman feels like? Are you saying you have attraction to men? So therefore, that's what you're saying is giving you the confusion that you're in the wrong body? Thanks, Tully. Well, as I said, I'm seeing more and more of this. Frances is calling from Dayton, Ohio, and she's got a situation similar. Hi, Frances.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I got you clear.
Okay.
What's up there, dear? Yeah.
Okay, I've got a granddaughter who thinks that she's a boy, and she obviously takes hormone stuff or whatever because it's deformed her body. And this has been going on for quite some years. She's supposedly living with somebody as married, which I told her it's not a marriage. But the problem is, I still love her, even though I think she's way off in her thinking. But
how old is she, Frances?
Right now, I think she's 32.
Okay, so this is something that she's decided as an adult.
Well, she decided back when she was 18, 20.
Okay.
And 18,
she's had hormone replacement therapy to
Well, she must have, because she's got, it's deformed her body, so I think that's what she's doing.
and she likes the fact that it has deformed her body.
I guess she thinks it makes her look more like a man. It doesn't. But
So
I still love her, even though I think she's a little nuts.
So you still love her, but does she love you back?
Probably not. She won't. She broke off. She used to at least be civil and talk and come to some gatherings occasionally. And then she broke off. One time she complained that we didn't go to her wedding, and which was several years earlier. And I told her, I wrote her a very well-written letter that explained that we loved her, but what she was doing was against God's laws. We love God more, even though we love her very much. We love God more, and therefore we could not condone and go to the wedding and celebrate something.
And that is not okay with her, unless you applaud what she's decided to do with her life. That you no longer belong in her life. That's where she's at.
Apparently so, and I think it's really her friend that's behind it, but nevertheless.
Are you the only one? Are you the only one of the relatives, or everybody else have applauded it and accepted it and thought it's wonderful?
Everybody hasn't accepted it, but they would have gone to the wedding, or they went to, I'm the one that won't. I won't put a rubber stamp on that kind of behavior. I'll go to lunch with her. I'll go to dinner. I'll invite her over. That kind of stuff is fine, but I won't say it's okay what you're doing. And she wants me to say it's okay, and I won't do that.
If you are showing her love through your social contact and your willingness to be with her and asking her about all the other aspects of her life, that is a wonderful thing. If she says...
Well, that she used to do that, but now she won't even talk.
All right, well, then you're done. Basically, she says, she's blackmailing you. She says, if you don't come out and approve of what I'm doing, going against your deepest held beliefs, then get out of my life. That's what she's saying. She's not allowing you to love her, to have contact with her, to have a relationship with her. She's not allowing that. She's basically saying, if you don't think a certain way toward my marriage, or in quotes, or my relationship, or my determination of my sexual orientation, if you don't approve, overtly approve, I have nothing to do with you. So really, she's the intolerant one.
Well, I know, but I have to still pray that things change. And one other comment, I don't know what psychologist she went to when she was younger, but I think there's psychologists out there that are pushing these kids the wrong way.
That's not unusual that there are those therapists who, when someone tells them they're gender confused, pushes them into the opposite gender. That's not unusual. That may be more likely than not among many therapists. So your impression might be right on, but here's where you're at, Francis. She's demanding that you sacrifice your deepest held beliefs. You haven't shunned her. You haven't said, get out of my life. You haven't said, I hate you. You haven't done any of that. You said, I want to have a relationship with you. And she said, no, unless you applaud what I'm doing. And you are well within your rights to say, I can't applaud the action because of my deepest held beliefs. 877-57-EQUAL. Want to hear from you. Time left.
her diary, St. Faustina wrote, "If only I had a spiritual director from the beginning, I would not have wasted so many of God's graces. If even the saints needed spiritual guidance, how much more do we?" The nonprofit Revive app lets you meet virtually with certified spiritual companions, scheduling sessions at your convenience, helping you grow closer to Christ. Your first 2 sessions are free. Download the Revive app today. That's REVIV, and then the number 3.
When I started to work in Catholic radio, defending the faith became an important part of my call to evangelize. I knew I needed to know more to share more. I took a deep dive into Scripture in a Bible study called Catholic Biblical School of Michigan. We're all called to evangelize and to be equipped to share our faith. One of the most important defenses of the faith is that catechesis is Christ-centered. One of the biggest arguments that I've heard over the years against Catholicism is that we're not Christ-centered, and that's just not true. Everything about catechesis is centered on Christ. Without Christ, there is no catechesis. So know your faith, read Scripture, read the Catechism of the Catholic Church, join a Bible study, listen to Father Mike Schmidt's Bible in the Year and Catechism of the Year. Know Jesus. Know how to communicate the teachings of the Church. Learn to communicate catechesis. This has been a Christ-centered communication message. I'm Vanessa Denhagarmo, a communications evangelist and host of Epiphany.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866 Ave Maria or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
Oh yeah, cool. I was in Catholic University of America last week, and a woman came up to me and said, "Dr. A, I sent you this years ago." Her name is Dr. Rebecca. She's a PhD. She said, "Based it on Lewis Carroll's You Are Old," Father William. And she wrote this, and she said, "I still have it, Dr. A, and here it is." And it has been quite some time. "You are smart, Dr. Ray," said the mom on the line, "because you have letters after your name. I've noticed my children incessantly whine. Is my discipline somehow to blame?" "That could be a factor," Dr. Ray said, "but I think after hearing your voice, the answer may lie in genetics instead. It may not be a matter of choice." "I need help," a caller explained in a rush. "I'm very concerned for my son. He's scared of the toilet and frightened to flush. Please tell me what is to be done." "You called in," said the shrink, "on the number 2 line. I expect that wasn't by chance. In the end, I believe it will all come out fine. And by that, I don't mean in his pants." From Azerbaijan, an anonymous call from a woman with great trepidation. "My child is lazy. She won't work at all. I'm sick of her procrastination." "No problem," said he. "My words can empower. With my help, you can motivate her. But let me first take my 3rd break this hour. Don't hang up. I'll talk to you later." "You are smart," said a caller. "If I had your brain, I fear pride would cause me to stumble. But you just won the Meekness Award once again. What made you so awfully humble?" "They're starting the music," replied Dr. Ray. "So this shrink has no time to expand. I've boosted your IQs enough for one day. Now hold your kids tight by the hand." That's very good. I don't want to kind of talk about that from my perspective, but that was very creative in what she said. 877-573-7825, 877-57-EQUAL. Andrew and I were talking on the break there, and isn't it just so interesting? Anybody that even thinks about this more than an inch deep will recognize that someone who screams for tolerance so very, very often is so intolerant of anyone who thinks differently than they do. I want you to be tolerant toward me. I don't feel tolerant or think tolerant toward you. You're not allowed to have beliefs that you think come directly from God. You're not allowed that. Because they don't dovetail with the culture. The culture says sexual freedom in every way is to be applauded. The ultimate irony to this is since the so-called sexual revolution 50, 60 years ago, the research keeps gathering. This is not a good way to live. Divorces have skyrocketed. Abortions skyrocketed. Living together has skyrocketed. Out-of-wedlock pregnancies have skyrocketed. Just jumped off the charts. They held steady for decades and decades and decades in our culture. Just held steady. Then all of a sudden they just exploded. Is it possible that God knows the best way to live? Is it possible when he says, do it this way, don't do it that way, even though you want to do it that way, even though the culture says that's the way you should do it, to have total autonomy and freedom, you do it that way? Religion, in most cases, Christian religion, does not force itself on people. Now, people think it does. Don't tell me how to think. Grandma's call here, she wasn't telling her granddaughter how to think. She was just saying, I can't applaud that. Interestingly enough, as Andrew was pointing out in the break, Grandma's being judged. The granddaughter says, don't judge me, which Grandma isn't judging her, by the way. Grandma is simply saying, I love you, I want to have a relationship with you, but don't ask me to sacrifice what I deeply believe. And it's more than what I deeply believe. I deeply believe it comes from God. So this isn't my opinion versus your opinion in my mind. I believe there is a God. I believe he gave us guidance on how best to live. I believe there is a church that Jesus established to speak in his name until he returns. I believe that. And the granddaughter is saying, you're not allowed to believe that. So the very accusation toward Grandma, which is, you're not allowed to believe that because, Grandma, you're telling me I'm not allowed to believe that. Grandma obviously is not saying that her granddaughter has to act and think a certain way, because I read between the lines, I would expect that the granddaughter has no connection with the church or with Christianity, or if she does, it's self-defined. So for Grandma to say what you're doing is a sin would be meaningless to the granddaughter, just meaningless, because she ignores probably the idea of a God who tells us the best way to live. She just ignores it. But at the same time, Grandma is saying, for me, that behavior is confusing. I don't understand it. And I believe that it is very much personally in a wrong direction for you. Now the granddaughter says, how dare you tell me what's in the right direction for me? Well, in a sense, the granddaughter's doing the same thing to Grandma. She's saying, Grandma, you are not allowed to believe what you do because that's the wrong direction for you. You have to go in the direction of the culture. You can't cling. Interestingly enough, too, did you notice in passing, Grandma said she was the only one who didn't go to the union of both, I think both women, even though the one says I'm identifying as a boy. She didn't go. And the church would say you don't go. You don't witness something that is very clearly, in the eyes of God, not established as a marriage. But she said everybody else did, which probably tells you that's why Grandma's being singled out.
Another year has come and gone, and whether you like it or not, Uncle Sam requires you to make an accounting. Perhaps it's time to call Myler and Zipka. They work with you to legally minimize your tax bill and identify ways to reduce future taxes. Eliminate the nagging feeling that you're paying more taxes than you need to. Call Ken Zipka today at 734-930-5500. Myler and Zipka. Integrity, excellent value, and people dedicated to a long-term relationship. 734-930-5500.
Most physicists agree that the cosmic tape can be rewound to a moment 13.8 billion years ago, when there was a small point, like Horton's dust speck, which gradually expanded into our universe. As to where the speck came from, how it happened to be, the same cosmologists are clueless. 3.8 billion years ago, they estimate, life first appeared on Earth. To this day, its origins are still unknown. About 40,000 years ago, the record of human history suddenly changed. Art, advanced language, trade, travel, suddenly all became part of the anthropological record. The source for this sudden change? Unknown. Our lives, our history, are shrouded in mystery. Yet foolishly, we think that we control, that we can decide who has value and what characteristics establish human worth. Much better would it be if we were to live in open-mouthed wonder and to see all as gift. GuadalupeWorkers.org.
Hello, I'm Marianne Kuharski with Pro-Life Across America. Did you know that a billboard can save a baby's life? When our billboards and radio ads are running, we receive hundreds of calls from those seeking pregnancy information and support. Every caller is connected to a local center offering free ultrasound and confidential counseling. Won't you join us in this life-saving effort? Donate today and help us do more. No gift is too small. That's ProLifeAcrossAmerica.org.
WLHN 95.3 FM, serving Brandenburg, Kentucky. Not the Brandenburg Gate in Germany, Brandenburg, Kentucky. Celebrating, what did I do? Okay, never mind. I touch stuff on my computer and it all just goes away. 11 years on the EWTN network. So we got congratulations to Rodney Pickering and all the whole team there at Meade County Catholic Radio. From all of us here at EWTN. It's kind of nice reading some of these events and these anniversaries because there's a lot of years there. A lot of them are 11, 15, 20, 23, all of that. And speaking of years, when I was in San Antonio yesterday, actually, and that's so bizarre. So bizarre. You could be halfway across a continent in the evening, get done talking at 10 o'clock at night, and be back home at noon. That's just bizarre. I just wonder if the body is built to take that. But Toya Hall was there. Toya is the absolute dear, sweetest lady who is the guts, the running of the operation there at Guadalupe Radio. When they first started in Midland, Texas, one station, Midland, Texas, I think I did one of their first banquets. I don't want to say, well, they put it this way, 20 plus years ago, 25, 26 years ago. And I was in middle school. I couldn't believe they asked a kid out of middle school to come do their banquet. And then I've watched them grow, as Toya informed me last night, to 48 stations. Wonderful job, Toya. God put you in a place where you can grow. When I left the Catholic Church in my 30s, I wasn't mad at her. It wasn't like so many people do to effectively leave the Catholic Church, which is, I don't agree with her. I wasn't anti-Catholic. I wasn't hostile. I didn't have a bad experience. I just drifted out. Interestingly enough, have you noticed, and this goes to Tully's call and it goes to Grandma's call, the main moral reasons, well, more than the main, probably 90% of the moral reasons that Catholics or the culture disagrees with 2,000-year church teaching is below the waist. When was the last time you heard someone say, you know what I don't like about that Catholic Church? You know what I don't agree with? Well, they just say you're not supposed to punch somebody in the head when you're in an argument. Boy, I'll tell you what. Who are they to tell me what to do with my fist? You know what else I don't like about that Catholic Church? They tell you that you're supposed to have a soft spot and take care of people who are poor. Oh, that ticks me off. They tell me what to do with my money and resources. How often have you heard that? At all? But yet, below the waist, fornication, abortion, adultery, contraception. Those are the main, by far, moral matters that people simply say, well, I like that church sort of, but I don't agree with that. I don't like that. One of the reasons that I had to embrace the Catholic Church in all of her teaching, I had to come in my mind, and I'm hoping this is by God's grace and not my own particular stumbling forward, that she had the authority. As I looked at history, as I looked at Scripture, as I looked at reason and logic, I was convinced, it's a pretty compelling case, that the Catholic Church, as it is now, was there in the beginning. Now, obviously, not in exactly the same form, if you will. It's a worldwide church. But back in the beginning, when the apostles and the disciples headed on out, if you look at the earliest writings we have, what the church still teaches, they taught. Once I became convinced of that, and I pray that's God opening my eyes, then I couldn't argue with her and have her prove to me every single thing. If there's something I don't understand, I can try to understand it. But if in the end I still don't really get a grip on it, then for me, I must say she has the authority. We do that in pretty much everything in our lives. Growing up, our parents, they had the authority. How much did you agree with your parents when you were a kid? But they had the authority. The church has, I believe, more authority than parents. She has eternal authority, affects your soul. So, for me to look at these issues of gender confusion, homosexuality, abortion, contraception, saw a statistic just recently, 80% of American weekly Mass-going Catholics do not agree with the church's teaching on contraception. That's like saying, I'm with you, church. See, I'll check that box, I'll check that box, I'll check that box. Oops, don't agree with that one. Okay, well, that's all right. You know what you do? It's anytime you do that, you're putting yourself above the church. It's not a matter of, I'm a pretty good Catholic. I follow most of what they say. No, you're putting yourself above the church. If you can pick and choose what you decide to believe, then you're saying, I am above the church. There's no other logical way to look at it. Yeah, but I agree with almost all of it. Yeah, you hear what you just said? I agree with almost all of it. Once again, it's your authority. What do you do when you don't agree? You could even say, I don't agree, but I will obey. Okay, it's fair enough, as long as you don't act on your not agreeing. It was something that struck me when I came back to the church. How much people picked and chose the moral issues below the waist that made them say, well, I think the church is wrong on that. If you can say that, well, then you're the authority over the church. I can only imagine somebody going up to St. Peter or St. Paul when they were preaching the gospel, the resurrection, and saying, well, yeah, what you say is pretty good. It makes sense. I like a lot of it. Now, there's some stuff here I think you're wrong on. And I don't think they would have said, well, that's okay. That's okay. You know, we got to agree to disagree. You have your opinions. I have my opinions. That's all right. No, I don't think they would have said that. They would have said, this is the teaching. All or nothing. See, in our culture, that just does not sit well. It is not the mindset of a people who is willing to say, I submit. Dr. Ray.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
How do we recognize the voice of our conscience? The Catholic Catechism says that in order to discern exactly what our conscience is telling us about a contemplated action, every person must be sufficiently present to himself in order to hear and follow his conscience. St. Augustine says, return to your conscience, question it, turn inward, brethren, and in everything you do, see God as your witness. Conscience empowers us to assume responsibility for an act committed. Man has the right to act in conscience and in freedom so as to personally make moral decisions, asserts the Catechism. Man must not be forced to act contrary to his conscience, nor must he be prevented from acting according to conscience dictates, particularly in religious matters. This is Peggy Stanton, and this has been the Order of Malta's Minute with the Catechism.
You're listening to Ave Maria Radio.
Ave Maria Radio.
Hello, Steve Ray here from Footprints of God Pilgrimages. The land of our Lord and Our Lady is calling us. We're heading back to the Holy Land over Christmas break this year. We have the best, most reliable guides and services awaiting us. The holy sites are open, and the local Christians are anxious to see us. Galilee, Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem. No crowds, no lines. Hope you can join us.
Find the Ave Maria Radio travel tab at AveMariaRadio.net.
I got to clarify something. You know, as a psychologist, I have seen people, and the research supports this too, that are truly gender confused regarding their sexual attraction. And I believe that for some small percentage of them, this is something that is innate. It's the way they're wired. I believe also that there are those who were abused, sexually abused, and set upon a path of that kind of attraction. Absolutely. And that's why God makes the judgments and I don't. However, it's like anything else. If you say, well, I'm attracted to females, I'm a male, and I'm not married, therefore I should be able to act out on that because that's the way I'm wired. But I'm not married. So there is a certain parallel, however imperfect it is. Joan wants to weigh in on this. Joan from New York. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Dr. Ray. This is Joan. I just wanted to express my thoughts on some of this. When I was a child, say 11, 12 years old, me and my girlfriends would role play and pretend, like children do, that we were boyfriends and girlfriends, and we would pretend we were going on dates. And of course, we'd put our arms around each other and kiss each other and that kind of thing. And then one day, we found out what homosexuality was. And as soon as we heard that was a taboo, that immediately stopped it. And we never, ever did anything like that again, okay? But I think in today's climate, if children hear the opposite, that all this is good and you should express yourself and you should try and you should see what this is and all that, I think if we had learned that instead, I don't know, I think we would have gone right after it as little kids because we would have thought that was the way we were supposed to go. And so I think that children today are being misled and just given a whole bag of wrong teachings, and parents are not even aware of it. And then when their kids grow up into teens, they're wondering why their child is suffering from, all these identities disorders and homosexuality feelings. So that's all I wanted to say. That's it. Dr. Ray, I know your time is short.
Well, let me piggyback on that, Joan. There was some research that came out. I think it was cited by the American College, not the American Academy, American College pediatricians. That roughly 97% of kids who are confused about their gender by the end of adolescence, by the end of their teenhood, revert to their biological sex. And you're right. If the adults around them, if the culture around them says, this is something you should explore. This is something that, in fact, you may know, you may unknowingly have this attraction. You need to check it out. And as our previous caller said, that, a lot of therapists are doing this too. Bill Maher.
I agree.
Bill Maher, certainly no conservative. He said when he was a kid, he wanted to be a pirate. And he said he was glad that nobody put a patch over his eye and gave him a peg leg. Because that was just something as a child he looked into. Now, granted, the parallel, again, is not perfect. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, kids are very influenced. And the social media algorithm, if you look up something as a 13-year-old and you're already having struggles with anxiety or depression or trouble in your life, or you may have an autistic component to your development, you look something up out of curiosity, that algorithm is going to snap onto that and start sending things your way that feed into that. Absolutely. There's no question there's a social component to all this, because that's the only thing that would really accurately explain the explosion in identification with the same sex. I'm sorry, I misphrased that, but you know what I mean. So, Joan, thank you. Appreciate that, dear.
Thank you.
You take good care. Yeah, it's interesting. And as I said, I just reading in the article on First Things, on the transgender percentages, they've been cut in half in the last year or two. They just cut in half. And it raises the question that if, in fact, this was a biologically dominated phenomenon, they wouldn't be plummeting like that. whatever influences there are pushing young people in that direction, for whatever the reason, especially the most vulnerable group, the young kids, the teens, are leaving that identification. Hey, thanks for joining me here. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you, Andrew Kruchek. Thanks, Eric Dumont. Thanks, all of you who gave a call, made this show good and fun for me. Thank you so much. Walk with God, and that's a good way to know the best way to live.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.